Currently, the world is paying close attention to the martial law and impeachment issues unfolding in South Korea. However, upon closer examination, these issues reveal something far deeper. South Korea is engaged in an intense battle against global communism. Crossroads News reported on this situation, highlighting its significance.
Martial law was declared and then very quickly lifted in South Korea. Now, this was allegedly being done to clear the way to root out North Korean subversion throughout the country. The allegation was there are politicians in the country who have been subverted by North Korea. The problem of Chinese Communist Party and North Korean subversion in South Korea is massive. It is a massive, serious issue. I've reported before that CCP subversion in particular, the CCP has subverted South Korea to such an extent that the country risks losing its sovereignty if nothing is done to change it. I would actually say the majority of the country currently is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party.
Additionally, Dr. Gordon Chang stated that if South Korea's President Yoon falls, the country risks being overtaken by China and North Korea. This is not merely a domestic political issue, it is a war against communism. Against this backdrop, President Yoon's decision to declare martial law and send military forces to the National Election Commission within just 2 minutes carries profound implications. Why did President Yoon deploy troops to the NEC immediately after declaring martial law?
그래서 저는 이번에 국방장관에게 선관위 전산 시스템을 점검하도록 지시한 것입니다.
For years, the Chinese Communist Party and Russia have been accused of interfering in elections in key countries to aid communist-aligned factions. Recently, in Romania, a country of strategic importance to Russia, evidence of Russian interference in election fraud was exposed, resulting in the annulment of the election results. Romania is not an isolated case. Since 2018, election fraud has been uncovered in Iraq, DR Congo, and Kyrgyzstan, all countries that use South Korean-made vote counting machines.
Many countries, including the United States, have suffered from allegations of election fraud. What is noteworthy about how we believe the Korean election fraud works is that a specific political party plans, a government agency implements, the Supreme Court covers up election frauds, and advanced information technology is used in these crimes. The following are the scenarios of election fraud that ordinary Korean people have uncovered on their own. The Democratic Party creates an election blueprint. From this blueprint, they run simulation software programmed on the National Election Commission server to inflate the vote count. The vote count is inflated through several methods such as manipulating electronic counting machines, inserting fake ballots, or switching ballot boxes. The Supreme Court covers up these crimes by nullifying the recount. Based on the opinion polls in each constituency, the predicted voter turnout and the manipulation value, the number of early votes is inflated and distributed to each constituency. Under Korean election laws, a voter can decide between casting their votes on election day or during the 2-day early vote period. Many citizens suspect that setting aside 2 days for early voting sets the stage for bad actors to perpetrate election fraud. The horizontal line is the difference between the early vote versus election day votes. The vertical line represents the number of constituencies. If there are more early votes, the bars to the right of 0. If there are more election day votes, the bars to the left. In 2016, the votes were clustered around the center for both parties, meaning there was little difference between the number of early votes and election day votes, which come from real voters with no known manipulation. But in 2020, the blue bar representing the Democratic Party was entirely on the right side of 0, which means in every single constituency, they got more early votes than election day votes. The red Conservative Party, the exact opposite. Not only that, the graph is a mirror image with a 10% shift of votes in either direction. The other minor parties represented by the bars in the middle means their votes were not part of the manipulation.
It is 100% vote fraud, since when I calculated the possibility of this vote result, it turned out to be almost zero. The result of the 2020 general election reported by the NEC is not possible in a real-life election.
Professor Huss said the likelihood of achieving a result like this, with tens of millions of real-life voters, is equivalent to tossing 253 coins in the air and having them all turn up heads. This graph shows the national results of the 2024 general election. Red are the seats won by the Conservative Party, and blue are the seats won by the Democratic Party. In many instances, the Conservative Party won in the Election Day vote, but as you can see in the early vote, the results were overturned in favor of the Democratic Party. It's especially apparent in the metropolitan area. Despite winning so many constituencies in the Election Day vote, the early vote results were overturned in favor of the Democratic Party in all constituencies, except one in Seocho-gu and 3 in Gangnam-gu. Had the early vote not been manipulated, this would have been virtually impossible to achieve. In the 2020 general election, many observers reported seeing the Conservative candidate winning in the Election Day vote. But then the results reversed as early vote ballot boxes began to open late at night.
Every time we opened the early ballot box, we found an unbelievable number of what appeared to be fake ballots in the box. When I saw this, I got goosebumps and couldn't believe my eyes.
These are the fake ballots that Attorney Yoon mentioned. And earlier, we showed you ballots that were so crisp and clean, they looked like they had just come from the mint. Those two were discovered in the recount evidence box. Listen to the explanation from the NEC's promotional video.
This ballot uses paper that is made of a special material that can bounce back to its original form without creases. Therefore, this cannot be an example of evidence that real ballots were replaced with fake ones.
If we are to believe what this video claims, then what about the other ballots in the box that remain creased? And then there's this, the voting clerk's seal, which should be clearly visible with a name and a place, smudged beyond recognition. More than half of the 1,900 ballots cast in a town in Incheon Yeonsu constituency were discovered this way. Voting clerks testified under oath that they had not stamped these ballots or even seen these ballots before, but the Supreme Court justices ignored this testimony. Listen to this printing expert with over 40 years of experience who participated in the Incheon Yeonsu constituency recount.
I approached the 3 Supreme Court justices and told them that the paper ballots in the recount were not the genuine ones cast by voters, but printed and cut in print shops. But Justice Cho Jae-yeon turned his head away and refused to listen.
There were also some truly bizarre incidents where ballots that were clearly present at the polling station and at the counting station did not show up in the recount. These ballots were clearly recorded in the voting book as having been cast by the voters. However, these ballots were not found in the recount. This is strong circumstantial evidence that the ballot boxes were replaced before the recount. In July 2022, Supreme Court Justices Chun Dae-up, Jo Jae-yeon, and Yi Dong-won dismissed the recount lawsuit of Min Kyung-ug, justifying their decision in a Supreme Court opinion that the plaintiff named the National Election Commission as a defendant and, quote, couldn't pinpoint an actual offender or describe how the crime was perpetrated. They also wrote, quote, it is not a fraudulent election since no criminal would leave such obvious evidence. In addition, under the law, a Supreme Court justice must serve as the head of the National Election Commission. But if the National Election Commission is a defendant in a lawsuit, how is it constitutional for that judge to preside over a case in the Supreme Court? Many began to question the objectivity and motivations of the Supreme Court. It's easy to see with the naked eye that the paper ballots are fake. Verifying their validity is simple by examining them with a loupe or weighing them. But the Supreme Court justices wouldn't consider taking that extra step to cover up any allegations of wrongdoing.
The National Election Commission printed fake ballots, matching the fabricated vote numbers, and created new ballot boxes. Before the recount, they replaced the real paper ballots cast by voters with these prepared ballot boxes and discarded the real ballots by shredding or burning them. The Supreme Court justices all saw those fake ballots with their own eyes. Even though they knew what was going on, they made the conscious decision to cover it up.
This is not merely South Korea's issue. It is the labor pains of a new global order. If we lose this war, the world will become communist. South Korea is fighting fiercely right now. You too must fight and pray earnestly to ensure that your own country is not taken over by communism and the forces behind it.